Hey, hello everyone. This is Nicholas Hall with Graham's Foundation. I have the pleasure today of spending some time with Nadeane Jackson. Hi, Nadine. It's good to see you.
Nice to see you as well. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for.
yeah, absolutely. Um, so you've had the experience of spending some time in the neonatal intensive care unit. Yeah. And we want to talk about your journey, your experience, and also what that inspired, that journey, what that's inspired. And we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. So if you wouldn't mind just kind of sharing a little bit about how you became a member of our community of spending
Yeah.
spending time with your baby in the neonatal intensive care unit.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, that journey, I guess, s- sort of started to unfold around 18 weeks of I was pregnant. I had a 9-month-old at home, and we got pregnant very quickly after, and everything was tickety boo until 18 weeks, and then the pregnancy just flipped on its head. I was diagnosed with full placenta previa and what appeared and turned out to be severe placenta accreta, which I mean, your folks, your world might be totally familiar with, but I was absolutely not. Basically, my placenta went rogue. So it covered my cervix completely. And then it started embedding itself in my old C-section scar from my son,
Oh
um,
wow.
and into my bladder. Yeah,
Wow.
it went.
How was this discovered? Were you having something physical experience?
Yeah, well, I woke up one morning and had a massive bleed.
Oh wow.
And I we had unfortunately experienced two prior miscarriages as well before my son. And so I was very shocked when I went in and they told me that the baby was actually okay, but this was what was going on. And it
Wow, yeah, I, you were expecting that it was another miscarriage.
100%, like you,
Sure.
yeah, I was so shocked to hear. So although it was not great news,
Yeah.
it I was very pleasantly shocked and surprised that my baby was still okay. So from there, I was on some form of bed rest for the remaining 4 months, 3 months, excuse me. Which was really, and I bled every day. Every day it was just like, oh,
Huh.
is ev- a wondering and worrying if everything was okay with my baby. And I was
Did they tell you to expect that was sort of that was it was normal actually based on that particular condition?
correct, but it was also, I think, well, I know the fact that I was a nurse and the fact that we lived less than 1 mile. We were a few city blocks from Barnes Jewish Hospital and St. Louis Children's Hospital. So, and the fact that my husband worked from home, all of those factors allowed me to stay out of the hospital. Otherwise, I would have been admitted very early on
Right.
because the bleeding, yes, it was expected, but it also could very
Huh.
easily and very quickly lead to a miscarriage and or me potentially bleeding out. So it was just a very stressful time.
It's almost like we were on bed rest for a short period of time. Preeclampsia is what led to our early delivery.
Hmm.
Uh, and it's a surreal. I remember it being kind of a surreal experience that it's like every day it's a little bit, you're kind of holding your breath and you think you can exhale a, li-
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
a little bit, but it's never really terribly comforting.
No, not at all. And
Yeah.
and it's I feel like when I'm stressed in life, I can busy myself and I can focus on it.
Ah,
But like when you're on bed rest and just at home bleeding, like your mind just takes.
yeah, there's only so many movies and so many
Mhm.
TV series or books you can binge or read, right? I mean,
Right. And
yeah.
that time I was home with my 9-month-old and I was not able to lift him. I couldn't
Oh,
put him
wow.
down,
Wow.
which was really a hard experience for him. I mean, he's not going to remember, but that was an added um, level of stress for me, not being able to pick up my own son for so.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's almost, I mean, you didn't know it yet, but that's similar to, what a lot of parents feel with their babies. I mean, I think the hospitals, the NICUs are getting better at advocating for that skin to skin contact and how important that is. But yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, I can't imagine actually what it must have been like, how hard it must have been to not be able to do that. And so you kind of were in that state of holding your breath. For
Yeah.
how long were you able to maintain your pregnancy?
For an additional 3 months. So it was actually my first Mother's Day weekend. Um, I was in and out of the hospital, not admit, I was never admitted. But I was in and out of the hospital, I mean, every few days, um, close to the end. And it
Mm.
was my first Mother's Day weekend. And I landed myself back there. And, by the grace of God, like the way it all turned out was, I'm so incredibly fortunate. But um, that physician that day was like, you know what? I just feel like we should keep you tonight. And my like intuition, it's
Mm.
like I was having these little contractions, which I'd had before, but for whatever reason, she decided to keep me that weekend.
Mm.
So thankful because I spent one night there and then they admitted me on Mother's Day, which also was my birthday. And I had a massive bleed that night, and they decided it was game time. So it was at 29 weeks um, when it happened. But again, thankfully that physician
Mm.
chose to be that cautious. I did receive one of the two steroid injections as well, which is I'm so
Yeah.
grateful for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, um, I'm sorry, is it daughter or son?
So my son I had first, and then my daughter was the premature. Yeah, we
and
didn't.
your daughter's name is
Her name is Esme.
Esme. That's beautiful. So,
Thank
so do you and Esme share the same birthday?
Yeah, we
Oh,
did.
and
Uh,
every once in a while, it's going to be both of your birthdays and Mother's Day.
it happens. Yeah, yeah.
No pressure there, Dad.
I know, right? It's such a
Oh,
big
although it's very efficient, very efficient.
oh, that's true. My son, they're actually Irish twins. So for 3 weeks they are the same age, and it's fun. It's
Yeah,
now.
right, right. Took a little time to get there to get
Yeah.
it done. That's part of the reason. So you may not know, I created Parents of Preemies Day, and we celebrate it each year on the first Sunday in May, which is a
Way.
week before Mother's Day. And I did it. It's one of those things where I know I can remember I was going on a walk in the park down the street from our place, and I just had this thought, like there are parents like we were that are, the world is celebrating, not the world, the United States, maybe it's the world, I don't actually know, but celebrating Mother's Day and then Father's Day. Actually, I know they do, but they're on different dates depending on
Yeah,
what country you're in, right? But
right.
there's sort of there's kind of an expectation of what that's going to look like, or at least an idea. And for parents that are going through the journey of prematurity, there's some reasonable chance that, your first mother, those Mother's or Father's Day are going to be celebrated with your baby, the neonatal intensive care unit, and depending on what the situation is, um, it just can be actually kind of a heavy time. So we celebrate that just to kind of recognize that no matter where you are, no matter what happens, you are a parent, right? You'll always be a parent. Um,
That's be- I didn't know you did that on
yeah,
May 1st, you said?
whatever the first Sunday is in May.
First.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, and we give parents it's just an opportunity to really kind of share and celebrate your parenthood, and brag on about your how awesome your preemie is. So Esme was born at 29 weeker, and then how was the journey then uh, from that point on? How was there like a recovery for you, or was actually the birth was that actually helpful in terms of your physical recovery?
No. It
No. Short answer, no.
Yeah, no. My body is I'm a lemon. That's what my sister told me once, and she's so spot on. Like I nothing normal
Oh,
happens.
I love lemons. I thought that was a good thing. Sorry.
Okay, good. Depends on your lens, but
Yeah.
no, it was surreal because I think because I was holding my breath so much during that pregnancy, I never thought about, our goal was to keep her in until 34 weeks. And I never once thought about what was going to happen when she came.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
it makes sense. You've got we're
right.
trying to get to this particular point. Whatever
Yeah.
we get to where we get to, and wherever we get to, whatever shows up, that's like we'll deal with that when it
That's
comes. Yeah.
that. And again, by pure design, like fortunately, we had a phone call because this was COVID times. We had a phone call with an attending NICU provider, which I am so thankful for as well. This conversation happened like 3 or 4 days before my
Mm.
daughter came. But it was so helpful for me to hear, okay, if your baby comes at this point, this is what you'll see. If your baby comes at this point, this is what you'll see. And I remember, I would so vividly remember
Mm.
after that call, like saying to my husband, like, if she comes at 34 weeks, which was best case scenario, she might spend a couple weeks in the NICU. And I just remember thinking, like, that's impossible. Like, I have a baby at home. That's not, it just, I couldn't wrap my head around it. And then she came, and I mean, you just have to do what you have to do. But um, as far as the surgery was, I lost 5 liters of blood. I received multiple blood transfusions and was on
Wow.
others and all the things.
Wow.
Um, they, I had a hysterectomy as well, which I kind of was prepared for,
Yeah.
and a bladder repair because it had grown in
Yeah.
was in my bladder.
Oh.
It was surgery, and I was one city block away from the children's hospital, which was such a blessing. Um, but yeah, it was 2 days before I got to go see her, and it was just hard. I think it was 8 days in my wing in a different hospital building, just like wheeling between the two of us and recovering from a pretty extensive surgery.
Yeah.
Um, it was a blur. That phase was a blur. I feel
Yeah.
like the entire NICU experience was a blur.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah, it's like you're trying to heal.
yeah.
You've got an infant to care for and your daughter. That's a,
Hmm.
that's a lot. I think your experience is another illustration that every experience is unique.
Oh, totally.
Just, yeah, it's just they're all unique, and so they're going to present their own with those unique circumstances, their own challenges. I do want to, a shout out to the nurse or doctor that had the conversation with you ahead of time, um,
Yeah.
to be able to help you have at least an understanding or appreciation for what some of the possibilities were.
1000%. I can't imagine how like rocked I would have been not having that in the back of my mind. And it wasn't a thought until that conversation because I was just day by day.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, very, very lucky with
Well,
that.
yeah, and I say routinely that most parents of a baby born prematurely, or if they of a baby born with a particular condition that's going to require, a long stay.
Yeah.
Most of us are first time customers.
Hmm.
And so as a first time customer, you're, you're pretty clueless.
Oh,
And, and that's to be expected.
right.
That's to be expected. Again, fortunately, I mean, you were in a situation where because you were on bed rest, because there was the likelihood, um, of a premature birth, that they had some time. Uh,
Right.
we were on we were in and out of the hospital. We had, there would have been time to have a conversation with us, but I'm absolutely confident nobody had a conversation with us
Yeah.
of kind of what to expect. Again, I'm not trying to be critical or say that anything was wrong. It's just that was it's an opportunity, just an opportunity. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And that's important because, I mean, getting your ducks in a row, just emotionally wrapping your head around what
Yeah.
is to come, but also like plan a little bit for that. No, I will say, especially as a nurse, there are so, and I'm not knocking nurses or physicians or any healthcare people because it's a system problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, these conversations just fall through the wayside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how was your daughter's health, when she was born?
Good. Like I said, received one of the steroid injections. She was on BiPAP. She was on BiPAP. She bounced between that and CPAP for quite some time. And she did require an intubation for surfactant administration, but it was like in and out. Um, and honestly, every not problem, but everything she experienced, like the bradycardia, the apnea, everything was very par for her gestational age.
Yeah.
Um, we were so fortunate. She never had any, I mean, she never had a bleed. She never had an infection while she was there. Like everything was par for the course in that regard. It was still, not easy.
That's not necessarily par for the course, actually.
You're right. You're right. No,
It's a
that's
course, it's a course, but most of us, and you have to remind parents have to, I always have to I remind parents that your baby is like 0, 1, 0, 1. It's just like it's its own unique experience. And so you'll read about all these statistics of born at this gestation, there's a this percentage of a that. And it's like that's it's a big data set and your baby is one. And so yeah.
that's And you know what I find like, and I mentioned this in the aftermath, like we compare, we compare our stories. And Esme was next, we were in a pretty high acuity wing. Um, and there was like two babies on ECMO right
Mm.
next to her. And as an ICU nurse, like I understand, I
You knew what that meant.
I was comparing and downgrading our experience because was like, it could be so much worse,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
honestly delayed my healing and emotional, like a lot giving, not giving myself the time and space to mourn
Yeah.
certain things. All it did was prolong that. But we do that as mom.
Yeah. I remember. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was jealous of a few babies for sure that were just
Yeah.
flying, flying out of there.
Right.
Um, I know within a few days of us first being in the NICU, there was a family that I could just sense they were losing their
Ugh,
baby, and they did ultimately lose their baby. I remember hoping like, man, I hope that's not us,
yeah.
and it was us with losing our son Graham. And yeah, and we were in an open bay, which I think they probably have less and less.
Meaning you were like right next to families, like probably a
Yeah.
curtain.
Like 12 isolates in a room.
What? So you could see all the other babies and families?
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah, I mean, we were in a community hospital. It was level 3, but community. So,
Right
that's still, there's still plenty and so, that presents the opportunity is that doctors and nurses are just always right
there.
there.
Yeah,
Um, and you have the chance of potentially connecting with other parents. Maybe, but again, it depends on the type you are, the type they are, what they're going through, what you're going through.
yeah,
Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. So,
yeah. Wow.
yeah. I know more and more they have their own rooms or maybe share with one other family. I don't think that there's not like an ideal design, I don't think, but
For sure.
how long were you in the NICU? How long was your daughter in the NICU?
She was in there just or 58 days. She was in there 58 days. I will say another like unique play in our story
Yeah.
was so I had that hysterectomy.
Yeah.
I had a few bumps in the road, like post-op, had some bladder issues and infection, etc. And then at 8 weeks post-op, so my daughter was still in the hospital. I like where they take your cervix, they sew it together like kind of like a sock, and it's called a vaginal cuff. And mine actually opened one night, and
Doesn't sound good. They
it
probably don't want that to happen.
it was I thought I was having an anxiety attack, and
Mm.
like I just something didn't feel right, and eventually at 1 o'clock in the morning, I told my husband, I was like, don't stay home with our son. I'm going to drive to the hospital. They're probably going to tell me I'm having an anxiety attack and everything's fine. And by the time I got there, which again was like, it's less than a mile, it's so close to us. I could barely breathe. My 4 centimeters of my small intestine actually like came out. And yeah, so I landed back in surgery like immediately and another few days in the hospital. And then my daughter and I were both discharged on the same day, which was just added an overwhelming. I was placed back on a million zillion restrictions for another 4 months, seeing all these specialists. And, you dream of the day,
Yeah.
that you get to leave. And I feel like I didn't do it just didn't play out at all how I anticipated running between like my unit and her unit. But yeah, 58 days she was there.
So did you at the time, did you have a therapist that did house calls?
No, no. I also like when I started writing about and reflecting about like this journey and stuff, I And relating it to being a nurse and seeing other families go through different things. A very dear friend of mine was going through cancer treatment with her son, and it like profoundly struck me recently that the way we move through a medical crisis is the same. Whatever the diagnosis, like it's pure survival mode. Then there's this remission crash and paradox of guilt. And I,
Yeah.
I was lived in that like
Yeah.
family in that survival mode. So I don't think I was in a position to, I wasn't processing anything. So
Yeah, we go into
yeah,
there's the world out there is still happening and you're just in this.
yeah, literally
Like you
like,
said, you're just
yeah, one step at a time. You're not processing any of it really.
yeah, it's like day to day. And
Yeah,
when and um it's like you want to be able to say, world, just hit the pause button for me, would you?
yeah,
Just give me a moment. Yeah, I think parents should have to opt out of therapy and counseling or what, just we need to opt out of support, not have them somehow recognize because we only upload the audio of our talks, but you know, you don't strike me as someone that the doctors or nurses are gonna probably think that you need any help. You're like, I suspect you probably come across as I got this. We're gonna
yeah,
figure this out no matter what's going on.
yeah.
And
Until I hit this certain point, and then it's crash, which
yeah,
is exactly what happened. But I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I don't understand why it's so tricky. I really don't understand how it's so tricky for us to leave the hospital not connected. Because I mean, it's a HIPAA, it's of this 20 papers that I signed, it's one extra one giving them consent to follow up with me, which is what I needed because when I'm in it,
yeah.
I was emotionally in it when we left. It's really, I can logically know that there's support out there. I can logically know but it's very debilitating being in that heavy, depressed, emotional, unstable space. And so for me to muster up, like to call someone or to connect, it didn't happen.
Yeah, I know with our, mentor program,
Hmm.
uh, we always have around 40 mentors and we could have so many more because so many parents, that's an act of service, an act of giving back.
Yeah.
But I recognize that it takes something for a parent to get to a place of actually reaching out and saying, I would like a mentor. And that's what's, because of privacy and all the other things, that is what's required. They have to make a request, right?
I know.
We're not going to just call them. And so, yeah, I wish we were completely overwhelmed all the time because we had so many parents that would just be even if they're like, yeah, I'm not sure if a mentor would be helpful, but I'll get one anyway, kind of thing.
Right. Or just even simply to know, hey, this is available. They're right there. This is how like, yeah. And I appreciate the privacy stuff, but why can't there just be like a consent form where and maybe in a month, 2 months, 1 year, whatever, you say, you know what, I'm good. I don't think I need this support. Yeah, I agree with you. It needs to be an opt.
Yeah. So part of the reason why the reason why we're talking today is you had reached out and shared about the book that you wrote called The Aftermath, and it really talks about, and it's I've got it right here in my hand, and it's illustrations, and I'm a songwriter, so I,
Ah,
I like the rhymes, uh, and so this is very much sort of a book of I feel understanding and inspiration, but I'd love you to share with our listeners more about kind of where what sort of where the spark, when you got the spark and for the book and a little bit about it and what you're what you're hoping to be able to continue to do with the book.
Yeah, sure. So when I was in the NICU, something that like broke my heart was the fact that my son could not meet my daughter.
Mm,
I'm perhaps COVID was an added element to that, but like no kids were allowed in the NICUs. Um, and that really, really was just an extra knife in my heart. I don't know why that really hurt me. And so I started writing poems like from my son to my daughter. And
mm,
that's sort of what filled her walls.
mm,
I don't know, it made me feel like they were connected and that helped. And they would all be poems, like little poems that he would send to his sister.
yeah.
Um, and then it wasn't until she turned 3, so a year ago, that I wrote the aftermath, and it started as a journal entry essentially. And I vividly remember
Mm,
the a big piece of the book that I talk about is delayed attachment, and I vividly remember like putting it on paper, like admitting it out loud to myself was such an intense feeling. Like I was like initially when I admitted that I could not connect with my daughter, like saying that out loud.
mm.
I will never share this with my husband. I will never let my daughter see this. But I mean, it was pure therapy, like just saying these things and reflecting on the experience, one with time, when I was able to look back, like it made so much sense. I mean, I had had a couple miscarriages, given our high risk pregnancy, didn't know how things were going to turn out. I did not allow myself to attach to her. I was
Mm.
just protecting myself. Um, and then the added, NICU stay where bonding is tricky. There's a lot of barriers to that. I When I left, I didn't have that. I didn't see or understand why I felt that way, and I felt so much guilt and so much shame and like I was broken and all these things until
I have to say I've been to a lot of conferences
Mhm.
in the last almost 20 years now. I
Yeah,
don't recall, I'm sure the conversation has happened, but I don't really recall like many conversations specifically around delayed attachment. And I mean, it makes sense. There's plenty of mothers that if the baby can't suck, swallow, and breathe when they're born, so
yeah,
they're not going to be breastfeeding,
right,
and that may not be possible. And then you just don't have, you're not going to have all the normal bonding that you would have, even if they're awesome with kangaroo care, even if they're like the absolute best.
yeah,
There's still like all the things, the physical things that can get in the way. The baby's not at home with you. You leave, every day, come back. So I mean, it's one of those things like we don't need to do a lot of research here, people.
yeah,
It just intuitively
100%.
makes sense, right?
Yeah,
Again, it seems that that would be more normal actually than not. Like,
it's so taboo though. Like I feel like I've never had. It's a hard thing to admit, I think,
yeah,
even though it's, I think, a lot more common than we say. And you know what? It also extends. I think it extends not just NICU babies. It's like people that have had infertility issues or multiple losses or go through a surrogacy journey that didn't work out,
yeah,
adopt, whatever it may be. Like there's all these barriers to us allowing ourselves to connect with with kids, and it doesn't make us cold and hollow. It's like survival. It's survival. And
yeah,
I feel so compelled to share this now because I wish I knew th- that it was normal, that it was understandable that I felt that way, because the amount of shame and beating myself up internally was awful. It was
yeah,
awful.
yeah.
And so, and yeah, I just,
Did you, and so it sounds like the journal entry, which started the content ultimately for your book.
Mhm.
Sounds like that was uh, an important part of your healing process.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it was like the start of my healing, and then sharing it and speaking to other families who have been through it. Yeah, it was so therapeutic for me to write this all out, understand it, and yeah,
Mhm.
pure therapy.
And when the book is published, and when did it, when did it become available? And tell
It,
us tell us more about what you're hoping. I mean, it sounds like you're hoping to continue to speak and talk about this delayed attachment issue in particular. Yes.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, I feel confident being the one like saying, yeah, I do. I want to keep sharing it. My goal though, like my grand goal is to have it in NICU care packages.
Mm.
Um, so we live in St. Louis and that's where my daughter was. So I am currently sharing like digital free copies of the book to as many, NICU families that I can. Um, and it comes with this very short, it's like a 2-minute survey that I want to use for a grant application to try and do that. So that's my grand goal, is to have it in the NICU. I'm also working with the Canadian Premature Baby Foundation
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
because I mean, same scenario, just different country. But
A
that
few of a few of us have picked up on your accent.
no,
Li lives in St. Louis, originally from the Great White North.
that's right.
Hey, hey, Yahoza.
Oh, I love it. Um, but that's my goal with it. I actually, my long-term goal, I want to write about the emotional experience with
Mm,
different medical, like my two of my close friends now have children with cancer. And again,
mm.
the parallels of like how you emotionally move through that are so profound. And I think that if we understood that process more, we could be a little more compassionate with ourselves, knowing that this is normal where we're feeling and when we feel it. Um, and it also helps like our village's supporters when they understand that when their child, I feel like the world sees remission or discharge as an endpoint.
Yeah, I tell you, I couldn't agree more. I really, myself personally, I don't
Yeah,
talk about the neonatal intensive care unit. I'm like, that's four walls and a roof, and
yeah,
that's where your baby's journey is going to start
right,
but that's not where your journey, frankly, at that point in time, you've got a lot of support. I mean,
right,
in terms of it's like, you got social worker, I mean, you got your
yeah,
doctors, nurses, all that stuff.
yeah,
And then when you leave, the system treats you as
com-
every other baby, every other parent.
yeah,
You go to a pediatrician, it's like
yeah,
it's all normal. And I'm just like, no, chances are you were in survival mode.
yes,
Chances are, you are now beside yourself.
yeah,
Chances are, I'm not saying always, but chances are.
right, right,
And so that's why, for us, I'm like, prematurity is a journey. It's not, and it's an experience. It's not a diagnosis. There's not a beginning. There's not an end. Parents will still, their baby's having any sort of issues. It's like, is this normal? Is this prematurity? What
right,
does this mean? So we
yeah,
have all the normal kind of anxiety ridden issues. And we're the ones that baby's just being a baby,
yeah,
doing its thing, whatever its thing is,
yeah,
developing as it develops. But we're the ones that are worried, anxious,
living,
depressed, you name it.
yeah,
Um, And so, yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's the emotions. I mean, the emotional impact for me talking with parents, that hasn't changed. I don't,
Mm.
there isn't medical technology that's gonna, it might lower the number of scars on your baby. It
Yeah,
might, it might do some
right.
things, might improve some of the outcomes, but you can't change the fact that if your baby comes in this world at a time when it didn't have the ability to more fully develop as expected,
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to replicate what Mother Nature does brilliantly. I mean,
Right.
so all
Right.
the things, all the emotions that that we're talking about, like, that's normal. That's to
Right.
be expected. Now, what
Right.
is it? How are you going to heal? How are you going to process? How are you?
Mm.
Um, because I noticed that I still go through things today where it's not the same experience, but the emotions, like, from those times, absolutely, and things, they come back. So, yeah,
You you feel like, time and space and reflection, whatever, can help to an extent, but right, you're getting stronger.
yeah,
Your experience isn't easier at
yeah,
all, right? Yeah.
yeah.
No.
I decided I believe in reincarnation, and therefore I am healing my soul for its next journey. So that's why I keep, that's why I keep doing this work.
Mhm.
And I'm confident you're gonna find that by doing the work you're doing, you'll make a difference for others, but you're also, as you probably know, you're going to keep making a difference for yourself and for your family. And, so it's a giving and a receiving for sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Um, Before I wrap up conversations, I always ask, is there anything that we didn't get a chance to talk about? Was there any brilliant question that I should or could have asked that I didn't get a chance to ask? So I want to make sure you have had a chance to share all that you want to share.
No, I appreciate that. No, I feel like we hit it all. The big one for me is the delayed attachment,
Yeah.
which we touched on. I mean, we could talk for hours about.
Well, that's what you're going to have a chance to talk about as you have more conversations with people like me. There'll be opportunities, I'm sure that you're going to find to just jump right in
Mhm.
to that conversation. We, of course, like to appreciate your journey and everything that went with it. Now, if they want a copy of the aftermath, sounds like if you go to your typical sellers of books online, I suspect that's where you find it today.
Yeah, currently it's available on Amazon and Ingram Spark, but I do have a website also and it talks about like the other books that I wrote, which are all cancer related, but it's called onyxinkpress.org is where it is. So there's a little bit more information about my understanding of the survival gap, like
Yeah.
through that. But
That's
yeah,
that's ink with a K, not ink as in, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, yeah. Ink with a K.
Yeah, and we'll be sure and include those hyperlinks in the show notes, as they say. So Nadine, just want to really thank you for your time today. Thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for sharing and inspiring all of us to keep making a difference.
I appreciate it. I really appreciate the opportunity to share this and really appreciate how people like you have taken the weight of your experience and turned it into like made it into a rainbow. You are a huge support to people like me, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you paving the way. So thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
Absolutely, my pleasure.